Some people have asked me about this old rig, so I figured I'd do a little walk around. This is my 1991 Mitsubishi Pajero. Short wheelbase. Hell yeah, brother. If you're watching this outside of Australia, you might know these as a Shogun or a Montero. I've always been into these shorty rigs, think TJ Wrangler or Suzuki Jimny. If it's got a short wheelbase and a wheel on the back, I'm into it. Pajeros are arguably the best value all-rounders you can find on the secondhand market. You can find them in good condition for under $10,000 pretty regularly. In the GLS trim, which this is, they're actually pretty well kitted out for an old four-wheel drive. Short wheelbase versions like this one are typically a bit more expensive and harder to find. Now this one's a Gen 2, so it's still got a body on frame construction and a solid rear axle. Newer models went to unibody / monocoque construction, and they went with independent suspension all around. From what I hear though, they're still pretty solid off-road. I bought this one with just over 300,000 Ks on the dash, full service history, and a stack of service receipts about yay high, as well as a service manual. That's always a solid green flag when you're buying anything used. Now this car's still from 1991, and she's older than I am. The paint's not in the best condition. There's definitely a bunch of bush pinstriping going on the sides, some fading on the bumpers. I've got a tiny bit of body rust just there, and the exhaust is a little bit leaky, but otherwise she's pretty solid. Mechanically, she's sweet. The 3-liter V6 still chugs along nicely and revs right out when I want her to. She's a bit thirsty though. From the data I've collected, she does. She averages 6.1 kilometers per liter and 5.5 while towing. There's been a couple things that I've had to fix, but honestly, nothing too crazy. I put in a new idle speed control valve, replaced a brake booster. The most labor-intensive thing was probably bearing in the front axle that had collapsed. So I had to pull that all out, have a new one pressed in, and while I was in there, I got a new set of CVs and put them in there because the old ones had torn boots. New ones weren't too expensive anyway, so I put them in as well. Modifications it came with when I bought it, it already came with a UHF radio, which was nice. It had a cheap pair of spotties that I've had to replace only just recently. One of them had died out from all the corrugations and bumps, presumably, and these ones came up on special, so I popped them in there. The bull bar was already there when I bought it, but it was a bit of an older style and it looked pretty antiquated. So I took an angle grinder to it and a can of spray paint, and now it looks like this. Now, I haven't done much else to it apart from fit the snorkel and, of course, the wheels. The steel rims that I put on these are 15x8s with a negative 22-degree offset. They're a little bit wider than standard and have a bit more offset that essentially widens out the footprint and also fills out the guards a bit better. Chunkier tires. I've got some Cummies on this thing, some Comforcer CF 3000s. Pretty solid Chinese muddy for the price. My only gripe with them is that they are directional. So when you're doing wheel rotations like you should be, you can't really get a full rotation. You can only kind of do them from side to side, which isn't ideal, but they seem to be wearing okay, so we'll see how they go. They're 32 by 11.5, which keeps it modest and legal. In Queensland, you're not allowed to go more than 50 millimeters above standard without getting it certified. Do with that as you will. Now, around the back, decent sized compartment. These two chairs right here, they fold right over and you can fit a full-sized mountain bike in there with the wheels off, or a packet full of camping gear that's good for a week. I've got 2 storage containers here. This one contains some hand tools. This one right here houses the bottle jack, as well as first aid kit, some WD-40 and some zip ties. Now let's go up the front. You access the back seat through one of the front doors, of course. Sitting in the back here, honestly not too bad. I'm pretty average height. I'm 5'10", decent amount of headroom and legroom, probably not too bad. You wouldn't want to stay in any backseat for too long anyways. Alright, so up here we've got a manual sunroof that's honestly more trouble than it's worth. I'm pretty sure the new ones came with electric ones. Center console instruments, we've got oil pressure on the left, voltmeter on the right. In the middle here we've got an inclinometer, which looks a lot like an aircraft attitude sensor. My uncle had one of these back home, and when my brother and I were kids, that thing was the absolute coolest thing you could have in a car. Here we go. Cruise control on the GLS model. Pretty awesome that a four-wheel drive from the 90s had cruise control. And the seats, 2 seats up the front, they're actually suspension seats, and they've got a little adjuster dial on the bottom that helps you adjust the preload for your weight. They definitely do take some edge off of the bumps when you're on a bumpy road. It being a short wheelbase vehicle, you kind of need all the help you can get. It's just a feature of the design. And down here, we have the switch that toggles the adjustable suspension modes. So you've got soft, medium, and hard. I like to use soft when we're cruising on the highway or driving over gravel roads with corrugations. Soft damping definitely helps take the edge off of those little bumps. Hard is pretty good when you find yourself on a nice bendy road. It's no sports car, but with that independent front suspension and the hard damping on the shocks, you could almost be fooled. Most times I just have it in medium though. 5-speed manual transmission with Mitsubishi's Super Select. This thing will shift from 2 to 4-wheel drive on the fly up to 100 k's an hour. 2 high essentially makes it a rear-wheel drive vehicle. 4 high, full-time 4-wheel drive, technically all-wheel drive without the lock differential. 4 high with a locking center diff, it dips into neutral, and then 4 low with a locked center differential. GLS model also comes with a factory limited slip differential and a rear air locker, which is pretty awesome for when the trails get really gnarly. Let's take her for a spin. Switching over to 2-wheel drive. This old rig is pretty sweet for what wasn't a lot of money. These Pajeros are endlessly repairable and easy to wrench on at home. She's far from brand new, so I don't worry too much about scratching her up in the bush, and what I didn't spend on buying the car can just go towards fueling more adventures. Whee!